But when I was in first grade and we first started learning how to read sentences, how to write sentences, things like that, I remember every day they would make us read books. We would have to go to the fucking library, the kids' library with the children's books, pick out a book and read it during reading time. And one of the books that I happened to run into in this children's library was a book about ghost stories, like scary ass fucking ghost stories. And like even it led to me finding another book, getting it through the book orders that they let kids order books from about how to hunt ghosts and stuff. And so I think from a very young age, 5 or 6, my interest was piqued. And I was curious about it. And there was also a show on Disney Channel around the time called So Weird, which was it was like a show about this girl who experienced ghosts, aliens, spells, whatever, you name it. And I liked the show as a kid. And even to this day, if I watch reruns of it on YouTube somewhere, which I have done in the past secretly, recent past, it's still a creepy fucking show. And so I think I was just interested in it at the time. And being an only child, man, when you go to bed at night and you're in a big house, not to humble brag or anything, but like I'm on the second floor and my parents are putting me to bed in the dark at 8 p.m. and I'm a kid, yeah, I'm going to be scared when my parents leave and I'm the only one on this fucking floor of the house and it's pitch black and I'm an only child in that house, right? And so you're naturally just, your brain races. And so I never saw anything in that house or anything, but when I was about 7 or 8 years old, there was a nativity scene. Do you know what that is?
No.
So a nativity scene, I think I've told you this story. A nativity scene is like where you reenact the birth of Jesus.
Oh. Okay.
And you do it almost like as a play. And so at my church that I went to, I was playing Joseph. And so I had maybe 1 or 2 lines, but it was more just a scene to where we sat there while the fucking congregation sung hymns or whatever the fuck they sing. And so we are outside. It's like a winter night because it's around Christmas, around the time where Jesus was born. And we're outside, it's kind of cold, and everybody has glow sticks because it's at night when we meet up to do this nativity scene. And as a 7 or 8 year old kid, I had never seen a glow stick before. I was fascinated by them. I was like, wait, there's liquid in that plastic thing, and you just like bend it and it lights up? That's fucking insane. It blew my mind as a kid. And so they gave the kids some glow sticks after they fucking broke them and shook them up. We all go outside, and I remember I'm sitting there being Joseph, and they're acting out the fucking birth of Jesus, and the whole congregation is in front of me. And so my church, we had this big yard behind it, and they built a steeple, a little, just like to reenact like where they kept the animals in the place where the Jesus was born in the hay and whatnot. And the steeple is literally just built for show. So it's like maybe 3 feet long. And then so I'm in the back corner of it and everybody else is right here, but then it's only like 3 feet long. So like everybody else is in front of it. And so I'm in the back corner and the whole congregation is in front of me. And I see a kid who's playing one of the shepherds on the floor, and he's putting the glow stick in his mouth and he's chewing on the glow stick. We're all just fucking kids. We don't know what the fuck we're doing. Yeah. And I was like, oh, you can chew on these too? And so I put the glow stick up to my mouth, and the moment it touches my mouth, I hear a whisper, clear as day, right behind my head. Keep in mind, I'm in this back corner. The back corner of this fucking man-made steeple, the whole congregation is in front of me. There's nobody behind me. And even if they were, how would they be there? Because I'm in the back corner of this fucking thing. I hear a voice right here in the back of my head, right behind me. It was almost like I could feel the breath on the back of my neck speaking it. And it said, there's poison in that. Just like that. It was such a whisper to where I could clearly hear every word enunciated, but I couldn't understand. I didn't know if it was a male or a female. All I knew was that I got this sense of, oh, this, whatever it is looking out for me. Because the moment I put the glow stick in my mouth, it literally went, oh, that kid has a glow stick in his mouth? Oh, I can do that too. There's poison in that. And I literally went like this. I was like, the fuck just happened? I was scared shitless, bro. I was like 7 or 8 years old. I couldn't explain where that voice came from. And how the fuck would I know there's poison in that? Right? It's not like someone told me. This is the first time I've ever seen one. And so after this whole fucking thing ends, I go up to the pastor, Pastor Jim McKinney. Shout out. Hopefully he's still alive. He was a little bit older back in the 90s. But if he's not, shout out. That's my man. I fucking love Jim McKinney. In fact, when I was a kid, I told my parents I want my name to be renamed to James, or to Jim, which is like the short form of James, because I liked my pastor so much. So anyways, I told him this, and he made a joke about it, and he talked to my dad. My dad walked up, and this is just like when everybody's like hanging out after church gets out or whatever. And I tell the pastor, I was like, hey, do you think God can talk to people? He goes, yeah. I said, well, I don't know what happened, but I heard a voice out there. Is there actually poison in these glow sticks? He goes, yeah, there's poison in that. Don't put that in your mouth. He said it just like that. And I was like, well, a voice outside told me there's poison in that the moment I put it in my mouth. And my dad walks up right here at this point, and the pastor, he goes, ha, 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 PJ, they used to call me PJ back in the day. Ha, ha, ha. Rodney, that was my dad's name. Rodney, your son, he says he heard the voice of God outside. And they start laughing at me, bro. But I swear to God, to this day, I can't explain that shit. But it kind of like cemented in my head, like, oh, there's something looking out for me. And so around this time as well, it was just a learning phase in my life. I'm going to daycare. It's when school's not in. It's the summer. My parents had day jobs. They would send me to daycare for kids, so I would have somewhere to go during the day while they were at work. And so this daycare I went to was actually in this huge mansion in Leavenworth, Kansas. Leavenworth is the first city in Kansas ever made, right? And it's also where the big penitentiary is. It's also where there was a lot of cowboy and Indian fights there, and there's a lot of like history in that town, right? So anyways, Leavenworth, Kansas has these old ass fucking mansions. Imagine like, you know, those huge estates where maybe they had a lot of slaves and whatnot back in the 1800s. Like these are those huge estate type of mansions, right? So this daycare renovated this whole fucking huge ass house into, you know, daycare. You know, you got the kids upstairs, you got the kids on the downstairs in the main level, you got the offices in these rooms, whatnot. And so on Friday nights, they would have this thing where it was called Friday night lock-in. And maybe some of the listeners here have been to those lock-ins before where you stay the night in the building and they kind of just do fun activities. Well, because this building was so old, it had a history and just kind of like a legend of being haunted. And there was always this legend that even the counselors would tell us, hey, this place is really haunted because back in the 1800s, it was turned into a hotel, this place. And one night in the hotel, everybody got brutally murdered. And one of the guys who got murdered, and I remember this stood out to me because I just imagine this guy looking like Davy Crockett wearing like the raccoon hat. And so they said one of the guys who got murdered, he was a hunter. He was in town hunting. And whoever killed them all, they chopped up the hunter's body into pieces and threw him out in the backyard.
So this is what they told you. How old were you at this point?
7, 6. I was going there probably from 5, 6, 7. I went there until I was 12 because at 12 they say you're too old to be in this daycare at this point. But I was 7 when I went to my first lock-in because you had to be 7 years old to attend one there. I think they even watched preschool age kids at that daycare too. And so I finally turned 7. This is also similar around the time. I have 3 stories today. This is around the time that the other shit happened with the nativity scene, around the same age. And I'm scared shitless because I know at the Friday night lock-ins, they also do ghost hunts. And what they do is just set up by the counselors because they know it's got a history of being haunted. And they dress up in like werewolf masks and they put sheets on them and they go upstairs and hide. And then the kids got to go look for them. It's like a massive game of hide and seek in the dark with flashlights and whatnot. And so a lot of kids really look forward to this, even especially like the preteens, like the older kids. And so my first lock-in, I've never attended these ghost hunts, but all the kids talk about them every day. And I was looking forward to it. Well, on this particular Friday night, we're watching the old school show Goosebumps. And Goosebumps, great TV show, but it's also kind of like scary stories for kids, and they're not super, super creepy. But on this particular night, there was a massive thunderstorm going on in Kansas that night. And I remember you hear thunder, you hear the pouring rain, hardest pouring rain I've ever heard. It's like beating the side of this fucking house with this rain, right? There might have even been hail, right? We're right in Tornado Alley, so it's not completely unique to have thunderstorms like that during the summer in Kansas. And so I remember lightning struck, and it was the loudest lightning that I had ever heard at the point because I think it struck like really close to the house where we were at, this big ass fucking thing. And in the middle of the Goosebumps episode, it couldn't have been written perfectly. You can't make this shit up. It couldn't have been written more perfectly. Lightning strikes, the old school VHS that's playing the VHS or the Goosebumps episode goes to white noise. It goes, and the TV with the 30 kids in the room who are all into the episode, and it's like 7 p.m. We're all like, whoa, what? What happened to the show? Because it was like getting good. I remember it. And I I just have this vivid memory of like Miss Joan, who was like the lead counselor. She pulls the VHS out of the player or whatever, the tape out of the player, and she's just fucking pulling the tape out of the VHS tape because it's all tangled up. You ever seen those old school VHS tapes? She's just like pulling it out of the VCR, and she's like, fuck. I remember she was frustrated, and she says it like this. She goes, whatever, guys, just go and start the ghost hunt. We can't watch this episode. I think the tape's broken. And so all the kids go, yay! And they all scurry upstairs where the counselors were already waiting for them, right? And so I'm afraid to go upstairs. And so I remember all the kids were already upstairs. I'm the last one down there, and Mrs. Joan is still fucking pulling just VHS tape, the tape out of the fucking tape, right? Am I saying that right? Am I using the right term? VHS, VCR, and then the tape inside the VHS tape, right? And she's frustrated. And so imagine we're in a big living room. And then there's like 2 glass doors that kind of open up, but they're glass. So you can open it and they go into like the entryway where the stairway goes upstairs. Okay. And so I walk over to the glass door and the stairs go up, turn, and then go up one more. All right. So I'm standing in the doorway, and because of the positioning of everything, because I'm in the doorway, if I lean this way, I'm looking into the big room where the tape is being worked on by Miss Joan. And then I lean this way and I can see up the first flight of stairs. And so I'm so even afraid to go into the entryway to go up the stairs. That's how young I am. And I'm the only kid down there. And so I look up the stairs, and right when I look up the stairs, I see a person that was clearly not a real person, but it was a silhouette of a person that was like foggy white. It was almost translucent, but it was definitely like what you would think a ghost would look like kind of white, gray, but you can see
So there was
the
like
features.
mist around him, or
it wasn't mist. It was like if I just kind of like photoshopped you and made you gray and somewhat see-through.
Oh. But you could like tell, like look at see his eyes.
I could see his eyes because it was almost like he was walking down the stairs, and what he did, I'm getting goosebumps right now talking about it. So I was standing in the doorway, I leaned and I looked up the stairs, and I looked straight up, 7-year-old kid. He turns the stairway, because remember, it goes up, turn, up again. He's on the middle part where it turns, and he turns and he stands at the top of the stairs and squares his feet up towards me and looks straight down at me and holds eye contact with me.
So you could feel his like just stare looking at you.
We had an interaction. He looked at me and I looked at him, and we both knew we were looking at each other in the eyes. And he was translucent. Here's this crazy part. He looked like a fucking old school hunter, kind of like a Davy Crockett. I specifically remember he did have a raccoon hat.
Were you scared at this moment?
I was scared shitless. All right. So I'm looking at him and I'm frozen in fear. I'm like, this can't be real. This can't be real. And because remember the positioning, I just lean over. Miss Joan, there's a ghost upstairs. Obviously, she sent everybody upstairs for the ghost hunt. She goes, yeah, I know, whatever. I lean back and I look up. Gone. Nothing there.
Damn. And there weren't people like just playing the hunter role?
If there was, I've never seen this person, and I went to that daycare every day, and every counselor there was a female. So there were no male counselors. This was a male apparition.
Oh.
Okay, so it was called the Women's Community Y. You can look it up. It's in downtown Leavenworth, right? Women's Community Y. I don't know why they called it the Women's Community Y. Probably because everybody who worked there and was employed by them was a female. Okay, but all the kids were going there, right? So yeah, if it was someone who was there, it wasn't a kid, because he was definitely, I would say this person was, being a 7-year-old kid, remembering the memory, I would guess young 20s, late teens.
So definitely since they weren't a counselor, had no reason to be there.
No reason to be there. Wasn't a counselor. It wasn't a kid because he was too old. And it was a man who was dressed in 1800s hunter clothes. And it was kind of clear, but clear enough to where I can make out every fucking feature, but kind of white and translucent. And even in my memory right now, I get goosebumps thinking about him holding eye contact with me. It wasn't like he turned the corner and then looked up and held eye contact with me. It was like he was holding eye contact with me as he walked and then squared up to me and then looked at me.
na na.